Do you know why I've called you over into my office?" Morgan stared at Archer with a frown. The man simply looked confused as to why she decided to bring him into her office the next day. "No, I do not. I was in the middle of teaching my cooking class, but you've interrupted me. That's right, recently. Archer has received many requests from some of the maids, so forth, in teaching how to get better at cooking. Of course, Morgan decided it was best for Archer to host a class to teach some of her subordinates to get better, though the bowman was surprised when he saw Bargist was part of the list. It has to do with yesterday, the meeting with your sister. What happened now? Archer frowned. It's not what happened, but the way you acted. You don't think I've noticed, do you? Archer raised a brow at his master's words. Imp! Why the sudden change in emotion? Archer looked surprised as Morgan went from serious to pouting. You're my familiar, yet you spoiled my sister with those treats you gave her. Morgan frowned at the man. Why does she get spoiled instead of me? What the hell are you on about, woman? Archer twitched his eyes. Ever since I've arrived here, you've been having me spoil you each day, whether it be cooking or praising and all other kinds of treatment you want. That doesn't comprehend the look you give her each time you stare at her. Morgan frowned and whined towards the bowman. The man's eyes continued to twitch. You hold a look of fondness and softness at her figure. While you hold that same look for me, your face looks more content with her. Morgan said jealously. Jealousy does wonder, I suppose. Archer said, so you admit it? Admit what? The only reason why I was quite content was that I got to share my cooking with others that I hadn't met. Sharing your cooking makes you feel content. Of course, it's the best feeling to share things, isn't it? For me, at least, sharing the things I cook and bake is the best. I'm still not forgiving you. Morgan frowned at the man. Sharing your cooking does not mean you can be happier with my sister. I wasn't happy for her. I was happy to share my cooking. Archer replied smugly. Morgan twitched her eye at the man, sighing deeply, staring at the man with a cold stare. Any more talk from you, and I'll overwrite your soul to only love me. You can do that. Archer looked surprised, but also shocked. Come now, surely she must be bluffing. Overwriting the soul is impossible. Right? There are many things I can do. I don't have the title of the Demon Lord without a reason after all. My power and Artoria's exceeds anyone else's. With our strength, you can say simply we're near the level of a god. Hoo-ha, Archer nodded. Well, if I may ask, what else can you do? He found himself interested now in Morgan's abilities. Morgan hummed. Then a smirk appeared on her face. That is but a secret for another time. Morgan said, Can I go now then? Yes, I just wanted to discuss it with you so you can remember your place. Also, you said I'm only allowed to love you. What the hell are you saying? That you can love only me, no one else. We're not even in a relationship. Archer scoffed. Honestly, I think you need to relax. I was just happy to share my cooking. You don't have to go far by saying I have feelings for your sister. He turned around and left. His words were hollow lies as those feelings he holds remain still. Morgan looked at the closed door with a lowered gaze. Saying such lies isn't good for you, Archer. She relaxed in her chair, calming herself. To only love her, he's her familiar, and she's his master. It's only natural for the familiar to stay loyal and love the master. A small pout left her. A selfish demon lord. Truly, speak of the devil. Morgan opened her eyes and appeared in dreamland once again. This time it was night-time again. Another memory. Huh? What is it that she shall see this time? There's nobody around. She couldn't help but say out of confusion, looking over at the shed, sensing mana in the distance. A huge flood of mana too, not as much as hers, but to some extent as if a ritual was being commenced. A blinding light formed. She heard blades clash. Out of the shed flew a man in full blue body tights, a crimson spear in his hand as she heard him curse. Her eyes gleamed at the spear the man wields. A cursed spear, the spear gives off bloodlust as she looked at it. But she walked off into the shed and ignored who she presumed is the servant class lancer, Artoria. Her face was in awe at the scene, and it's just as she confirmed from the memory of a hand reaching out to her sister. She saw as Emiya Sharu lays on the ground, shocked at the beautiful woman he summoned. Morgan stared at the older and more mature Emiya Sharu. Cute. She couldn't help but think at the younger form of her familiar. But then she noticed the blood stain at... Is that where his heart is supposed to be? Morgan widened her eyes, staring back at the servant Lance's spear. How dare that man, that might put his hands on her familiar. I ask of you, are you my master? Morgan looked at Artoria, who stared at Shiro with a serious expression. All the while, Sharu continued to look on with awe. She can hear his heartbeat accelerate. I won't forget this moment. It's as if this memory was engraved into my very soul as a single art graph. If one day I am to perish in hell, I surely won't forget this moment. Archer's voice echoed in her head as everything slowly faded. Morgan opened her eyes. Ah, so that explains everything now. The man known as Archer fell in love at first sight with her sister. She got up from her bed with a dead stare. Fell in love. Fell in love. Her familiar still loves her sister. What is this feeling? Jealousy? No, this amount of jealousy wasn't what she felt earlier. Even so, it all makes total sense now. The reason he didn't want to participate in the tournament, his fond gaze at her when they encountered one another, the content stare when she saw him staring at Artoria. Her familiar holds feelings. But at the same time, guilt for whatever events happened that claimed him to say that he had failed to save her heart. Calm down, Morgan. Calm down. This is not like you at all. Yes, the way she's acting isn't how she originally acts. She must compose herself. But how can she, when these emotions she feels are negative? She and Artoria don't get along. They both dislike each other to the fullest. Despises, and for her familiar. She could not accept this. An idea popped up in her head. She grimaced at the thought. Sorry, Archer. She pulled out an orb from out of nowhere. Her eyes were devoid of light and turned empty. She apologizes for what she's about to do, but her servant must adore her only. She'll overwrite Archer's memories of Artoria and replace them with herself. She'll alter his memories a bit. She stared at the silver and dull soul floating above her palm, staring at it. She tried to reach into the soul, but was denied. She reached in again, clang, but was denied once again. Morgan's eye twitched as she then began furiously trying to insert her arm into the soul. Clang, 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 but kept getting denied. She grits her teeth as she looked at the soul that remained floating. I don't understand. What's going on? She can't overwrite his soul or anything. It's almost as if she's being denied by an unknown force, like a force field denying her to change or alter Archer's memory of Artoria. Morgan went quiet as she realized and thought back to the dream, the memory which Archer claims to have been engraved into his very soul. Engraved! She looked at the soul as a shallow chuckle escaped her. The memory and love Archer has for her sister is so strong that she cannot alter or overwrite his memories at all. So that's how it is. A shallow exhale left her, staring at the ceiling. Once again, Artoria. You have taken from me what is rightfully mine. Her voice was low and full of anger. Please save me. Morgan's eyes widened as she then stared down at the soul. She sees herself smiling. She recalled the conversation they had. If one day, if she were to go out of control, or worse, for Archer to be the one to save her. Her gaze lowered as she stared at the soul. Has that memory been engraved into your soul as well, Archer? She said with a low tone. Her heart fluttered as she continued to stare at the soul. Grabbing it with her two hands, a small smile appeared. There's hope that she can take back what is hers. She's selfish, wanting something that wasn't hers first, but at the same time, she truly does harbor some feelings to an extent.